Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. I hope it's a good one for you.
Oh, yeah. Getting things done. We're getting them done.
Good.
And that's what it's all about. And you know what else is getting done? Our listeners are getting it done. You guys, praise you every week, and I'm going to keep doing it. As long as you keep downloading our show and telling other friends about it, that's how it works. We need your help as much as we would love to give you all of the content we can possibly give. You guys have got to help us keep the coal in train going down the tracks. And when you do that, please make sure you visit the old ampsandaxes.com, and you can click on all of our little banners on the side there, and we'll get into that, some other time. But for right now, we just want to say thank you, because without you, it's just me and Jeff. And that would be kind of weird that we would spend this kind of money to talk to each other this way when we could probably just pick up the phone.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you do sound good, Mick, but,
Well, it does have a better format. Yes, it's much clearer,
That's right.
Why hasn't the phone company called on to that is beyond me, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, what are those
but,
guys doing?
we like Mick was saying, we have to thank our listeners,
yes,
and please tell your friends to come on over to the website and click or download on iTunes or whatever you get your
we're
podcast
everywhere
from.
We're everywhere.
Absolutely.
There's no excuse. If somebody says they can't find us, you just look at them and go, "You're lying. You're lying."
You didn't look. You just didn't. Don't lie to me. You didn't look.
And when you do it, make sure you hold your hand back like you're going to sock them one time.
Take up your phone. I'll show you right now. Pick up the phone. I'll show you where they are. Right,
just take the phone. Throw it at their head. There you go.
Plug it in and listen.
I can see it now. Podcast Amps and Axes told people to throw their phones at other people's heads.
Yeah, we don't want you to do that. Just, figuratively.
Yes.
Just figuratively.
And when you do tell your friends and your enemies and your neighbors and all these other people that we want you to tell, make sure that you tell them that you heard it here first. Like, I'm sure today, right? Today has got to be a first. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We have a guest who is a, singer, songwriter, guitarist. But a lot of the success in the business has come from movie and TV soundtrack work, which is really cool. Plus, involved with a very cool company who we've had a prior guest on from, and it's a very cool company doing very cool things. So we're going to take a break, a pause for the cause, and we're going to come back with our guest of the week, singer, songwriter, guitarist, Miss Alexx Calise.
What's going on, everybody? This is Mitch Arnold from the band Wayland, and you're listening to Two Handsome Devils right here on Amps and Axes.
All right, and we are back as promised with our guest of the week, Miss Alexx Calise. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing great, Mick and Jeff. How you guys doing?
Fantastic, man.
Yeah, we're doing great.
Fantastic. Yeah, this is cool. I've read a couple of things that I want to ask you about, but we'll do what we do with all our guests, and we'll jump in the Wayback Machine and take a trip back and see where Miss Alexx Calise was born and raised and how you got involved in this wonderful world of music. So give us some history.
Okay, well, I'm a Cancer and I like long walks on the beach and right. No, actually, I was born in Staten Island, New York, but I spent most of my formative years in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So it's not exactly the mecca for music, believe it or not, in Fort Lauderdale.
But it is for long walks on the beach, you know.
For long walks on the beach, absolutely it is. No.
Yeah.
But it's a great place to grow up and raise a family. And if you're into, water sports and fishing and stuff like that, it's awesome. But the cool thing about growing up there was that I had a lot of time to really focus on music, just because there's not much to do. So, I would just spend many, many hours holed up in my room writing and, composing music and playing guitar. And
what got you into it?
My father, actually. My father is a fantastic musician, but he chose more of the science route because he's a neurologist. So it was funny because he was at a crossroads at one point in his life. He had an opportunity to go on tour with a band called The Happenings. I'm not sure if you remember them, but they had a song called "See You in September."
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
so
band, huh? Okay.
Yeah, and it was even like a little before his time too, because my dad was pretty young at the time, and they were kind of a legacy band even back then. But he chose to go to medical school instead because he said that I'm not a songwriter, and I'm just a decent guitar player, but medicine is another great love of mine. So.
Oh, very nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he chose the what would apparently turn out to be the more profitable career,
That is for damn sure.
Smart move. We all know that.
Not at all. He was the smart one.
Yeah.
Right.
So you were into guitar and writing songs at what age?
Oh God, I was young. Because first and foremost, I've always been a writer. I always thought that that's what I would end up doing, and I guess now it's just kind of morphed into music. But I started writing songs when I was about 11. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Did you wind up performing them with other peers of your area?
Yeah, I mean, like it's a little bit different growing up in Florida. I mean, it's not to say that there aren't good musicians out there because there definitely are, but it's a little harder to find them. So I performed solo for a number of years until I finally found some like-minded musicians, and I started performing with them eventually. But it takes a while to find them out there.
Well, you had the guts to go take it out solo. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my insurance policy.
I can always go back to playing solo,
Yeah. So.
Well, it's cheaper too. You don't have to pay so many people.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I can barely pay myself, so there you go.
Great. Well, you don't have to take the manager's cut out of it either, so that's great. You're your own manager.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way to do it.
So where did it go from there?
Well, eventually, I got the hell out of Florida, and my parents even, really pushed me to do that eventually too, because I just wasn't happy there and I wasn't fulfilling my full potential, because unless you're playing in cover bands or, you're doing Latin music, it's really just not the place for it. So I started working with a producer out in LA, and I eventually found my way out here. And fast forward 11 years, I'm out here and loving it. And, it's been the best move of my career being out here.
How did you begin working with an LA producer?
I had a manager out in Florida that had some connections out here, and he had previously worked with a producer on another artist he had worked with. So that's kind of how the connection came about. And the producer's name is Luigi Gonzalez. So he's actually been, he's gone on to do a bunch of really cool things too. Like he's worked with Madonna and Shakira and the Killers and stuff. So he's done okay for himself.
Sounds like.
That's a pretty good resume.
Yeah.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, I'd say so. I don't know how much bigger you can get than that.
True. So when you finally made your way out to LA, were you immediately like, in the studios and writing, or did you continue to do solo performing or all of the above?
Kind of all of the above. I actually didn't really have much of a place to live either. So the producer I was working with, Luigi, I ended up staying on his couch for about 6 months. So I ended up, whenever he had free time, working with him, and then I was performing solo and working just about every shit job you could think of to try to keep myself afloat. So. Right. Yeah.
Now, I imagine just you and acoustic guitar.
Yeah. And then eventually I found some cool folks and we started playing out as a band. So. Cool.
What was your guitar of choice back then, or a guitar of necessity, whichever?
I have a pretty extensive collection, but when I was first starting out there, I was playing on my, I think it was my Fender Strat, which is the first guitar I ever got actually, when I was 14. So
you didn't start on acoustic and you.
No.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I was playing that, and then eventually I became a bit of a Gibson girl over the years.
Wow. Now, when somebody says, I go out and do solo performances, my brain always goes to acoustic guitar, thinking that that's what you did first. So you were on acoustic guitar from the early times, but I guess I'm wrong, right?
Well, I did like kind of a mixture of both. It's a little obviously easier to do an acoustic, play acoustic when you're playing solo, but it kind of adds something different, I think, when you're playing, something that's like either a hybrid or, if you're going to do, or you could do electric too. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
True. It's, like I said, my mind immediately goes to solo performer, acoustic guitar, because that's what you see most of the time.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, ahead. But I wanted to, we have a mutual friend, Jeff Ruben, who he goes out, he takes his electric, and then he takes a bunch of these loopers and he does all these crazy things with it. And it's pretty interesting to watch that, because now it's like, you take that solo thing and you're almost like your own band, That's, and you totally can. Like, a great example would be like KT Tunstall will do things like that. She'll just go out by herself and play like that. I've heard John Mayer do things of that nature. It's really cool. It adds like a different, or introduces like a different dynamic to it. I think it's pretty interesting. Yeah, I never get it right. I always miss the loop.
Right.
It's
got to be tough.
I always miss that first beat, so I'm always like driving into it with. I'm like, it just, and then I look at it and I go, why did I buy this?
It's weird. You got to get used to it. But now it's always strange for me to kind of switch back to solo, because I've been playing for so many years with my drummer Dennis, that it's very strange. Now I'm doing a band setting, and it's not even like a full band, and we play as a duo. But you would never know it if you were just to close your eyes and listen to it, because it's so big. We play to tracks, but it's totally different when you play with someone else.
Well, sure. You should check out our good buddy Andy Alt, who makes the Little Thunder. Then you can have your own bass player, and it would be you.
Yeah, that's rad.
Have you seen that thing?
No.
It's a pickup that is. It's got a digital piece inside of it, right, Jeff? And the bottom two strings will actually go through another output. And you feed it to a bass amp, and when you do your stuff, you can do chords, and it'll just play the root. It's pretty neat.
That sounds really cool, actually.
Well,
especially
I'll
if you're
send you
doing
his info.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm very interested in checking that out.
Yeah, man. We've seen that thing in action. It's pretty weird, man. But once you get the hang of it, you've got your own bass player right there.
That's right.
Oh yeah, there are so many cool gadgets and stuff out there. I took a visit or took a trip to the Wilcox Guitar Factory in Carpinteria. I think they may have moved since then. But yeah, they make some seriously crazy MIDI guitars. I believe it's the Atlantis series. They even custom made one for Hans Zimmer, and yeah, it's just crazy what you can do on an instrument these days.
Yeah. It's almost like it's not an instrument anymore.
Yeah. It's like a multi-tiered. I don't know. It's like three or actually more instruments in one. You know, it's pretty crazy. We've even used that for some of our Batfarm recordings. We use a Variax guitar sometimes from line 6, and it's a MIDI guitar. And basically, you could on the actual, you can toggle it and make it sound like all different types of guitars. Like it has like a Les Paul setting, a Strat setting, and it's just crazy. It's one instrument and it does like the work of 20 of them.
Yeah, and they've gotten better. Cool. When that first came out, it was like, hey, this is a Les Paul, and I'm like, no, it's not. And they're like, it's a Strat, and I'm like, no, it's not. But it did sound like a banjo. I will give you that.
See, there you go.
And it sounded like a 12-string dreadnought, but it was, but they have gotten very, very good at it. I mean, the new modules and the new versions of it have dialed in pretty good. There's actually a builder out there, and I don't know the name, but he was taking, because the guitars were. They had a couple versions of it. They've actually stepped it up to, more higher end stuff. But there was a guy out there that was building like really high end guitars, and he was taking the guts out of the Variax and putting them in his. So you were like getting like a shred machine, something that you could really do a lot on, and then putting the guts of this thing in there. So that way you had all that with the ease of playability that, that his guitars offered.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure it's not a copyright infringement at all.
yeah, might want to look into that, cover your ass a little bit.
Right. I mean, don't call it a very anything.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the very different guitar.
Very different.
I like that.
So, Alex, you mentioned Hans Zimmer, and that reminds me of composing, and that brings us to what I assume is your next step, or in part of the journey. You do a lot of writing for soundtrack, both I guess TV and film. How did you get into that?
Well, it's one of the very few avenues left for making money for musicians, but it's, what I enjoy about it is that, and I've kind of struggled with this as a solo artist or, my entire career. People are like, oh, your shit's all over the place. And I'm like, well, I don't like to consider myself a one-dimensional person or a one-dimensional musician. I have many different facets to myself, and my music and things that I enjoy. So, when you're trying to be a band or an artist, you kind of have to have a sound, and it has to be somewhat cohesive. So, I was just constantly writing like as a solo artist for myself. And, I kind of saw what people were saying, like, oh, this sounds like it could be country. This sounds like, you have like this metal song going on. You have this, and they're just like, it doesn't make much sense. So I'm like, I took a step back and I really looked at that. And I realized, if something doesn't fit cohesively into one of my solo albums, for example, I could, either sell it to somebody else or use it for licensing purposes. So that's kind of how I got into that. And I think that it actually, while it hurt my career a bit as a solo artist, it's helped it as, somebody like as a composer. So, that's kind of how I stumbled into that whole thing. And it sometimes can be very lucrative. So no complaints there.
No, I'm sure there's no complaints. And, I don't know how that hurts your career as a solo artist. But, if you say it had the potential to do that, I have to agree with it. But, what I'm more curious about is how someone initially gets into that field. It's like, okay, I want to write, I want to compose. Yeah, that's great. Who wants to hear your stuff? How do you get it to the people, in the area that it's going to be heard, reviewed, purchased, whatever? How did you do that?
That's a very, very good question. So initially what I did was it takes a little bit of research. A lot of this information when I first started doing all of the licensing wasn't as readily available as it is now. I had to really sit and research. I had a job at the time where I had a lot of downtime because I was just working as a receptionist. So they were pretty cool, and I could kind of use the internet, all throughout the day. So I had all this free time to sit there and look up different ways like, how to get your songs into film and TV and stuff. So I found all of these different licensing companies, which you can also do with a cursory Google search, music licensing companies, Los Angeles, or just music licensing companies. And all of these different companies will come up that help to place your music into film and TV. So that would be my first suggestion to people trying to get into it. Some of them, they don't take unsolicited submissions, but there are a lot of licensing companies, say like Jingle Punks or Triple Scoop Music or Epitome Music, that will take that. They have a submission process for just about anybody to submit their stuff, and they will listen to it. And if you get accepted, you go into their database, and whenever there's an opportunity fitting for you, they'll submit your music, and then you have a chance to get your music placed.
Wasn't that what George was doing, Jeff? George Grimaldi?
George was working with Hans.
I was going to
Zimmer,
say,
and they, he was just doing, soundtrack stuff, 24/7.
That was
with
Sony
Extreme Music,
right?
Extreme Music, yeah.
Oh, Extreme Music, yes,
yeah.
yes. So actually, Extreme Music worked in conjunction with, I think, Jingle Punks. Like, just to give you like a little forecast here. So I had a song called "Cry" that was on the show called Dance Moms. And that song was placed through Jingle Punks. And that was the song essentially that kickstarted my entire career. So what happened was I didn't even realize at the time that my song was being utilized. Like I already had my music in the Jingle Punks database, for example. But all of a sudden, all of these kids were hitting me up, and then I started getting like thousands and thousands of download sales and, YouTube views and stuff. And I'm like, I must have gotten a placement. I didn't know where it was coming from. And it was the soul ballad on an otherwise all rock record. And I was just like, what's going on? So I looked on YouTube and I found this little girl dancing to my song on the show called Dance Moms. And they used the song, I don't even know how many times on the show. And the cool part about that show was that they were doing dance routines to the songs. So, they would be playing the song for like 3 minutes, so that's how the song blew up. And then eventually I got the little girl to dance in my official video. And then fast forward 4.7 million views later,
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all from one placement from a licensing company.
Oh, yeah. And I remember George was telling us, he said that he forgets who it was, and I forget who it was. I'd have to go back and listen to the episode, but a guy did a song that appeared in a Reese's cereal commercial. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that they played it 3 separate times inside the commercial.
Yep.
So his payment was 3 times for every time they did it, and they ran it all day long on Nickelodeon around the planet. So he said within like 1 month, the check it was ridiculous that they were writing out for this Reese's peanut butter thing.
Yeah. And you just never know. This song, like I said, was, no one believed in it. I always did. I thought there was something cool about it, but my producer didn't even want to produce it. And I thought it was a cool song. I really thought there was something there, but you just never know. I think the album had been out for 3 or 4 years and nothing happened with it until I got that placement.
Now, your album?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So it was that when you referred to it as the only ballad on an all rock album, record. That was your album.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting story. So,
Yeah, and you just never know. I mean, that's the thing. You just never know what's going to hit and what isn't. I mean, that's the way this world is. And somebody was stumbling through that, God, I've been out on Sony's thing. It's a mile. I mean, it is just, you can dive so far deep and wide. You don't know if a song that you're going to submit may even get heard. But they took that one person. Obviously, you know what that probably was? It was probably a title thing. And when they saw it, they went, okay. And when they listened, because you do that finger picking thing at the beginning, Because I checked it out on your site. And what is that? Is that that's not a Birdland, is it? That you're playing? What is that? Gibson?
The Gibson, to be quite honest, like I don't even remember which one that one was, because like it was a loaner from the Gibson factory or from the Gibson showroom, because I have an endorsement with them, and they're like, hey, just take this one because kind of match the theme of the video. Yeah. I should know that. I should. Yeah.
Only for shows like this,
Probably. Yeah, I probably should. So that's my bad. But yeah, I have to ask them actually. But they're just like, here, take this one because I needed one like immediately.
At least you got their product placement,
There you go.
in your video.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That kind of matters. That kind of matters more.
Help pay off their $500 million debt or whatever.
Oh God, yeah. But they're going to be just fine. Someone's going to take that over because it's too iconic of a name. There's no way.
Oh yeah. It depends what chapter you file, if it keeps going or not.
Somebody's just got to put them back on the right track and stop making bad decisions.
Yeah,
and they'll be okay.
I don't know if this is a Birdland or not, Jeff. It's a maroon. It's pretty thick, the hollow body. It's got a single cutaway. It could be one of those crazy,
I have to see it.
375, whatever, like Steve Howe, plays, or one of those things.
175.
Yeah, and then it's got the bridge is a tunematic, but it's not stationary. It's on a wood block, like a true semi-hollow. So it's a gorgeous guitar. I mean, yeah, and it's a cool video. I've watched a lot of it, and
thank you.
And that got quite a few views.
Yeah,
internet.
Absolutely. I was pretty stoked about that. It's funny when you're talking about, never knowing how things are going to happen. There's this family. I see their videos on YouTube all the time. It's like this father and he has this daughter and they're always like doing these skits together and he's always singing with her and stuff. So she was a fan of the little girl in my video, Maddie. So the other day, I think it was June 1st or something, they had Maddie come onto their YouTube channel and show the little girl how to do that routine again. And then that video got like, I don't know, maybe 3 million views in one day.
Jesus.
So again, still seeing kickback from that song.
Wow.
And the thing about that is that, the woman that ran that, I know a little bit of this history because my daughter. Right, she watched the show religiously. Mm-hmm. The woman Abby that ran this dance studio got indicted. She was embezzling money. Yeah. She was doing some pretty shady deals. Well, the show got canceled, but it was the hottest thing next.
I do remember hearing something about that.
Next to Duck Dynasty.
Oh, all I was going to say was just it was unbelievable the popularity of that show and all the things that it spawned. Like one of the little girls has a line of bows and clairs.
Yep.
Maddie has become hugely successful. She's like dancing in all of Sia's videos. And she's like starring in major movies. Like she just had one out with Naomi Watts. It's called The Book of Henry. Like their careers have just exploded.
And that's good because they'll need that for the psychiatry that will have to take place later.
Well, everything starts out good and Mom, you and I know,
Mom was a little nuts.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole parent thing in whether it's dance or whether it's cheer or whatever, occasionally some can get a little out of hand, and that's.
Look, I mean,
the first time won't be the last.
And not to go off topic, but my daughter was competitive cheer for I don't know how many years. Mm-hmm. All I know is I watched a Corvette go away, so I watched that get paid to a young girl at a warehouse, where she was tumbling. But you'd meet some of those moms and dads, and I was like, we're not dealing with a normal person here. This is not.
Some of them were fine, and some of them,
yeah. I could always tell which dads were cool because they were the ones that were hanging out with me in the lobby because we were ready to kill each other because of the music that was going on inside the other room.
Right. Yeah. It's funny though because a lot of that's for TV. Like I've worked very closely with, say, Maddie's family, and they're wonderful. And the same with Nia, who's another girl on the show. And their families are just really, really wonderful. And they'll even tell you, a lot of that's for television, that's kind of what's expected of them. But, and I've worked with a lot of them, and they've always been super nice to me. I don't know beyond, just our working relationships, but they've always been super cool to me.
Well, I heard today one of the contestants that was on The Bachelor, she was on Carolla's podcast, and she was saying that, this was no lie. She carried jalapeno peppers in her pocket, and she would squirt the juice into her eyes to cry because the directors were like, we need you crying. And she would go, okay, and just, and I'm like,
well,
there you go.
We know it's a complete reality show, and nothing is even semi-scripted at all.
And the word reality should be removed.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. I've done some reality TV myself. Like I was, in this pilot. I don't even know if the show probably didn't get picked up or anything. But I've done just like a whole bunch of appearances on reality TV. But they were trying to pit me against some of the other cast members. They're like, oh, say something, racially charged, or say something this or that. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, racially charged.
Yeah.
I love that. Hey, let's ruin your career.
Right.
Yeah. Why would I do that? I'm like, even if I got like the highest possible day rate, I'm like, people are going to hate me, and I'm not that person at all. I'm like, I'm not going to be your monkey. You know what I'm saying? Like,
or another producer be like, we're not hiring her.
Right.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, great. So I can never work again. Awesome.
So the money might be great, but the money goes away. The hate doesn't so easily, and it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Especially
Well, let's get back to music a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's get back to music. But let's go strings. How did you get involved in that business?
Well, I've been an endorsee of GHS's for quite a long time, about 12 years or so, even back when, Ben Cole was A&R over there. So, I became really good buddies with John Moody.
He's been on our show.
Yeah. So John, he's one of my best friends in the whole world. And I was gunning for this position. There was somebody that's, that had the position before me or something close to that. He had expressed to me his discontent with this person, to say it nicely. I would always come up with these ideas because I have a background in, advertising marketing as well. And he's like, you'd be really great for this. And then, I waited about a year for, something to open up. The rest is kind of history. The president was like, yeah, let's give her a shot. And I ended up working the NAMM show in January, and that was supposed to be kind of a temporary deal, and it just blossomed into an actual position. So,
we were
nice. There. Yeah, absolutely.
We should have stopped by.
Yeah.
Who knew? Who knew?
I'll be there, be at Summer NAMM as well at the end of this month, and we're obviously next year for Winter NAMM. So.
Well, all I have to say to the people at NAMM, and Jeff will definitely back me up on this, we really appreciate that we got our press passes. That was awesome. We love the show.
Oh, absolutely.
It was really great. Get a new guy to make the map. Okay, because none of your booths make any sense on the numbering. We got lost. I don't know how many times we walked around in circles.
It was a little difficult. It was the most difficult than I can remember it.
And we had the app.
And I've been there plenty of times.
Yeah, we had the app, and we were like, we're here, and we don't see the guy.
Right.
Yeah, well, they changed the entire floor of Hall E around completely. Everybody was getting lost, so you guys weren't the only ones. Yeah. I couldn't even find my way back to GHS, like if I had to go across the hall.
It was a little bit of a strange thing because it wasn't that way the last time that we were there prior, and we were like, what's going on? And then, if you remember correctly, Schecter. Remember, Jeff? They were
right here. We're right here, and they're nowhere. Oh, wait, they're upstairs.
They were beside the elevator.
Right,
a floor above us.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, then they had some of the companies like tucked away in like these like crazy hallways, and I'm like, how the hell is anyone going to find that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or it's like you're out in the alley.
Right.
Or
wouldn't want to be one of those companies that are tucked away and you can't find. Because there were some downstairs, too, I couldn't find either. So,
and remember, we had to go across to the new building.
Yep.
For some of the stuff. And we were like, there's another building?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was as of a few years ago. They started doing that. Like Roland used to have the entire arena, I think. And, it's pretty crazy. But, yeah, like basically it was, I think, like a monkey sat there with like a Sharpie marker, and just like he was the one doing the planning,
I like that. They were just throwing darts. Wherever a dart landed, hey, there you go, 232. That's what that was.
We'll just call it that.
Exactly.
I mean, the best you could hope for is get into the right numbered hall and just go from there.
I'm sure if the complaints came out, they're going to change it next year. Hopefully.
Oh, yeah. They're like, you want to take their survey? I'm like, do I ever want to take your survey?
I can't find my own booth.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, if I could make it back from the bathroom to the DHS, I was like patting myself on the back. It was awful.
That is beautiful.
That's when you have to leave like
breadcrumbs,
radioactive breadcrumbs, and find your way back with a Geiger counter.
Exactly.
Jesus, man.
Bad,
so, speaking of strings, you are also involved in a charity that does something cool with strings.
Yes. So I've been with them for years and years and years. They're called Wear Your Music. And essentially what they do is they take your used guitar strings and wind them into jewelry. So they do bracelets, rings, what else do they do? Keychains. So you can pick the charity that you would like the proceeds to go to. So my brother passed away a few years ago from like a head trauma, or he had a brain injury. Mm-hmm. So I chose my proceeds to go to the Brain Trauma Foundation. But especially now that I'm with GHS, because I worked with them so closely in the past, I wanted to connect GHS and Wear Your Music together. So they've actually been so kind as to sponsor quite a few of our events. And we've done some, cool promos with them, with Bonnie Raitt and some other artists. And they're just wonderful. Yeah. It's a really, really cool cause.
That's
very cool.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's, it's high profile players, because you don't take strings from everybody that wants to send you strings, I'm sure.
No.
I guess that's where they're, I don't want to touch those. No.
It's a funk.
Right. Oh, mine too. Cause like I'll keep, I'm like, I feel like I'm the worst musician ever sometimes because, I work for a string company and John always like gives me shit about it. He's just like, you need to change your strings more. And I'm like, so my strings are disgusting when I take them off, and I feel bad for Wear Your Music, because they probably get the strings and they're like, we need to boil these or something,
It's the jewelry line called Patina.
Exactly. Absolutely.
We have this new rust line coming out.
There you go.
Yeah, like derelict or something. Yeah, exactly.
And for the metal jewelry, it's called corrosion.
Oh, yeah. Hey, that's cool. It's gritty. It's real.
You go back to the company and go, I need a refund. I got tetanus from my jewelry.
Yeah. Oh God. Right. It's like, I don't know if anybody wants to wear my strings after.
That's funny. What do you mean change my strings? They're not broken,
Mm-hmm.
See, this is why I would never be able to work for like GHS or one of those companies, because they'd be like, really? You're bringing your guitar in again today? We was here 3 days before. What's going on? Because I'd be changing strings every hour,
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Well, John's super good about it. He does it all the time. But, even my drummer yelled at me the other day because we were recording, and he's like, you work for a string company and you haven't changed your strings yet for our recording. And I'm just like, that's bad, one of my drummers telling me that. So
totally.
Right.
Well, John's abusing it because he's a bass player. So I know I know what he's up to at $40 a pack.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So he's he's doing it right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, you know what? You guys, actually, the GHS company has been so kind to us. I mean, they've been republishing, the show for weeks now. I mean, we interviewed John beginning of last month, I think, or prior to that even. And
right around there, I would think.
We're getting like a repost every day from them. And I'm like, this is like the best guest ever for that, because all we do is ask our guests, please just post it. Just post it.
Right.
And it never gets posted.
Yeah, and that's what sucks. Like, with what me and John are really trying to do with GHS is really, provide a voice to like a lot of the indie podcasts, artists, everything, because we are too. We're indie artists, so we understand. I hate feeling like like I'm lost in the shuffle a lot, so anytime we can, we try to help everybody out, and John is just such a wonderful, warm person, and he really just wants to help people.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy. And the thing is that's what we do. That's what we're trying to do here, because we've interviewed some big artists. I mean, we've had Steve Morse, we've had, God, well, the list is very long. Famous guys like Larry Coryell, rest in peace. But it's the indie guys and girls are the ones that we like bringing everybody to, because it's hard to find music. You don't know. You could go through iTunes all day long and not even touch, probably 100th of their catalog.
Right.
And, to kind of expose some of these younger players and stuff, this is what we need, because, we've talked. It's the physical guitar playing guys, bass playing, drumming, just normal stuff. We kind of take it for granted, but we saw at NAMM, the numbers were down. It wasn't like the same crowd that we saw prior years.
Yeah. I mean, we take it for granted, but the thing is, we're trying to bring it to the light of, now granted, our audience is already in the music field more or less in one way or another.
Yeah.
But if they find something interesting and it's either the conversation about the music or the conversation about the person, which we like to focus on a lot, they might turn somebody else onto it who's not in the music field, but then it may spark something in them.
Yeah.
It's like, hey man, maybe I'll learn, how to play guitar or keyboard or, drums or whatever, something in music. And, hopefully it snowballs that way, because Lord knows the schools aren't doing it.
Yeah,
we've had this conversation 100 times.
Yeah, we'd like the full circle if we could,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's funny? This is like a much deeper conversation, but there's less and less incentive nowadays to become a musician. Because there's just no money to be made whatsoever. And you just see people, doing the whole weekend warrior thing because it's so damn expensive to tour. No one's paying for music in any capacity. And as an independent musician, you're just shelling money out and shelling money out and shelling money out. I even had to have like a bit of an existential conversation with myself. I'm like, how long am I going to do this, and keep losing my shirt and keep going into debt, before something pays off. And I'm actually, I've had a lot of luck with Say That Song. It paid my rent for quite a number of years and stuff. And I'm lucky, but that's what it is. It's complete and utter luck. And I've seen, the numbers dwindling over the years, because at least, when my song first started taking off, the download sales were a thing. And now, you're just streaming. You're just getting streaming revenue. And I believe it was Pharrell who wrote the song Happy. I think he made something crazy, or the writer of that song made like, I don't know, I want to say it was like $5,000 in streams or something.
That's All About the Bass, and that guy lives
thank you. Yeah, that's what it was.
And that fellow lives right here in Maryland. Jeff, you know him because he plays for Never Never. If I'm not mistaken, it's the bass player, I think. What's his name?
Eric Krakow that plays with them now did not write that song.
No, he did not write. It's somebody that we know, and they wrote the song, and they got a whopping $5,000. That got 175 million downloads.
Yeah. It's
that's just awful. You can't get much bigger than that. That was the song of the year, I think it was.
That thing has been played everywhere. It's not like, you got to think of like White Stripes and stuff and bands like that. When the football player comes out on the field and that thing gets an airplay, you know what I mean? That's and boy, let me tell you, you talk about corruption. a lot of these facilities don't pay their ASCAP fees to these guys, so they're not getting a hit for that. I wonder how many times Ozzy's Crazy Train has been played and not been paid for.
Right?
True.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because they don't police that at all.
Oh, no. And, they're supposed to, but, that it does explain some things, that it's not like it used to be. Kevin Kadish is the guy's name.
Okay. No, he doesn't play for them, but I know Kevin.
Who does he play for? I forget who he played for. But anyway, he took a bath on that, basically. He made his $5,000. That thing got, became the next, literally like your song Cry. I mean, it was something that you put out there. Your producer didn't even want to do it. And the next thing you know, you're like going, hey, I'm buying a new car.
Yeah, and that's but I was stupid, or I wasn't that stupid. Like I took the money that I was making from it and I invested it into a small business that I have. But I racked up a lot of debt with it, because I would just put everything on credit cards, and you think that money's never going to stop. And then all of a sudden it does, or it starts becoming less and less, and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you have to, if that does ever happen to you, give that money to somebody. Give it to a financial advisor, just because you just never know.
Well, it's plan ahead for sure.
It's like Mambo No. 5. What's that? I forget what that guy's
Vega.
Yeah. He went on Corolla's show. This was a long time ago, right when it came out. He was still on K-Rock, I think, at the time. And he said, so what are you going to do when this all settles down? He goes, oh, man, I'm riding this forever. And then I just saw him in a credit card commercial the other day because he's flat broke.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, you see people that were, some of the guys from, say, NSYNC or New Kids on the Block in these commercials now, and it's a joke. And, hey, that's totally cool. Grab all the money you can. I would never, poo-poo on somebody trying to make a buck. Oh, no, but it just goes to, show, it does eventually run out or become less,
It's a weird career because there's no taking it for granted. It's
well, you certainly shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, life you can't take for granted, but
right.
It like an actor, if you got a Robert De Niro, he doesn't have to do auditions, right? And somebody's just going to cast him. He isn't going to even have to put he isn't going to have to do really much leg work.
He's not going to have to go in and read.
Exactly, because it's Robert De Niro, right?
Right.
But Steve Vai still has to do all the footwork that you're doing. You know what I mean? It's like, and I saw his rig rundown from long ago, and he told Rebecca Dirks, he goes, yeah, I just wish everybody would buy my fucking album.
Yeah, but it's Steve Vai.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it from all different levels. I mean, even Rihanna, I think the last album that she put out, I don't want to say what the exact number was, but it was just in the few thousand of the first week of sales. And this is Rihanna. One of the biggest pop stars out there right now. This country has that 5-minute problem. It's so 5 minutes.
Any kind of pre-recorded stuff nowadays is made just so that people can hear the music, like the music, and go pay $400 for a concert ticket.
That's sick.
Yeah.
It's so funny. People won't, spend the money on a download, but they'll spend $5 on a coffee at Starbucks. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
I don't know. If I like an artist, I will go to the end of the earth. I'll go see them live. I'll buy all their merch. That's how I am as a person and a fan. But I don't know. People really aren't like that as much. I remember waiting in line for concert tickets overnight and stuff.
Sure.
And I'm sure you guys do too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that used to be a thing, and it's not. Everything's so instant, and while that's really cool, it's just made us this ADD society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one last thing, and before we have to roll here, but the streaming thing. When people go, oh, Taylor Swift, she makes so much money and she was protesting about it. Well, good on her, because I actually saw the numbers for iTunes for streaming. One stream of your song gets 0.003 of a cent.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Now,
like 0.0003
think
or
about
something.
how many times that has to be streamed before you get to a penny.
Yeah.
I think Taylor Swift made like $27,000 in streams when she finally did. Or I think it was for a month or something when she finally did submit and put her stuff on Spotify.
This is why,
like Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
Oh
this is
God.
why Apple's like $70 billion in the black.
Yeah.
and the greatest thing about this, by the way, kids, I don't even think they have the repository where the actual music sits. I think that's controlled by, like, this podcast. This podcast does not sit on iTunes. It is a link from a streaming service that we pay for monthly. Why we beg you to go love our sponsors. That they just put a RSS feed to it, and I don't know if the catalog.
They're not even hosting. They don't own the hardware and don't host.
So they're not even like
stuff.
spinning hard drives. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's
they're not paying for energy or hardware or anything.
No. And look, they're making money, and that's the enterprise way of the world. But the artist is taking the abuse at the end of this. And my thing is why is the artist constantly being screwed? These are the people that we want to continue doing this. They need to make a living. When I hear about people stealing music, I go nuts, because I'm like, what do you think you're doing here? You like this? And they're like, yeah, man, it's awesome. I'm like, yeah, well, you just screwed the guy out of his whatever he was going to get. So,
right.
And it's like, if you want to continue to hear it, you really kind of need to dig in your pocket and pay the guy, because he can't live off of air.
Yeah, exactly. You know, or you're never going to get a chance to see never get a chance to see the artist that you want to see. If it's an independent artist, like, they're going to be limited to just playing in their market, because how are they going to get out and tour?
Right.
Yeah, plane tickets are expensive.
Yeah,
gas is
absolutely.
expensive. You know, truck maintenance is expensive. You know, if you're going to do the tour in the van or whatever, it's.
Look at the damn strings; they cost money.
That's right. And speaking of strings, anything you'd like to touch base on with regard to GHS or anything that maybe our listeners might want to know?
Well, we're planning, actually, we've been in talks about doing some of these GHS showcases across the country. We have a few of them coming up. We have one coming up in Michigan, where GHS is actually based, in August. I'll have more information about that soon. As far as all the showcase dates, we'll be posting them periodically. Nice. But that's a big thing. You know, going back to what we were saying earlier, we're really trying to give a lot of these independent artists a voice in a forum in which to promote their music. So we're really trying to get out there to every state and give some of these artists a chance to play and be featured on a major platform. So that's our goal, me and John Moody's goal right now.
Well, God bless you.
Very cool.
That is
very cool. That's awesome.
Thank you very much. And we're trying to do a lot with this charity organization called To Write Love on Her Arms. We just did a showcase, actually, when a portion of our show proceeds went to them. It's a mental health awareness charity. So we're trying to do a lot, for that cause in particular, because, even myself, I struggle with depression. And I think even my dad, who's a neurologist, has said it's a very underdiagnosed problem, especially in the arts community. So we're really trying to bring about some awareness and, kind of quash the negative connotation surrounding depression and mental illness. So.
Oh yeah, that's a whole. Awesome. Let me tell you, that's a whole thing, and it took football players to start making people and ex-soldiers to make people start being aware that mental health is not something that you just take lightly and give it a slap a name on it and then push the person away. It's a thing. And
it is a thing, and it used to get swept under the rug so much because it had such a negative connotation. It's like, that has to go away.
Yeah, it was the guy out on the street talking to the sky, back when we were growing up, and you just, they had these things called state hospitals. Thank you, Ronald Reagan, for getting rid of them. And they used to take those people and put them in there so they weren't dangerous to others and themselves. And they could learn from that, and that all got squashed. And then all these years later, now you got kids coming back from war and stuff. And we could have, that's another podcast, but it's a big deal and it needs to be addressed. And good on you for that, because
absolutely.
Thank you.
That's not getting better. You know, and it needs guys like your dad, you know, that can look at a brain and go, hey, this is what's wrong. You know?
And it's very underdiagnosed. You saw it with Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell.
Oh yeah,
like brilliant musicians that were just taken too soon. You know, and it's completely preventable. You know, or I don't want to say that. That actually, maybe I shouldn't say that, but
treatable.
Yeah, it's treatable.
Yeah,
it's treatable. You know, and maybe if they. I mean, I'm not sure what their stories were in particular, but, you know, if they felt they had somewhere to turn to, you know, maybe they wouldn't have chosen to take their lives. I don't know. I don't know enough about them personally, but it's just very sad to see that happening with so many people that are so talented in the arts community.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, last thing you want to hear is somebody taking their own life.
I mean, what did we just hear yesterday? Well, I don't know when this is going out, but just yesterday, Kate Spade, you know, the one that does all the like pocketbooks and boots and accoutrement and everything. You know, she took her own life yesterday.
That's crazy.
Because it's the immense pressure.
Yeah.
And I think like that the media puts on you and the intense scrutiny. You know, for example, like, you know, our lives, we're just so scrutinized, especially people in the limelight.
Yeah, from total strangers, by the way.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
That have
I'm supposed to live up to your expectation of me?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, and that's where my friend Mark Zuckerberg comes in. But that's another podcast, too.
yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm talking to you guys' ears off.
No, it's all good.
It's all good.
Look, you know, give us your website address.
My personal one?
Yes.
So it would be alexxcalise.net, and it's spelled a little weird. It's ALEXXCALISE.net.
All right, and that is going to live on the show in
perpetuity.
That's right, and we're going to make sure that we put the old GHS website on there too. And you guys go out there, go to ampsandaxes.com, and you check that out and give some love because you know, she's got to pay rent just like we all do.
Right, absolutely. Support the arts.
And you know, I get tons of emails. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
They're good people doing good things.
That's right.
And support
them
me tell individually and the company.
I get tons of email from guys going, "Hey man, you've costed me money because I'm going there, I hear this person, I'm buying their stuff," and it's like, you know what? Good. That's how it's supposed to work, man. You know, life sucks. Right. Buy a helmet. You know, I remember being a kid when I was like 10 years old doing whatever. I mean, you know, it was like, well, okay, I'll clean your toilet because I wanted to get Kiss Alive. You know, and that's just the way it is. You got to pay. You can't take pants from Sears and walk out the door.
That's what I was going to say next.
Same thing with music.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. I feel like I'm not taking crazy pills. So, I appreciate it.
I mean, look, I would love to take my pants from Sears, but, you know, there's these guys called cops that will be showing up.
Right.
I think eventually Sears are going to pay you to take their pants. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they're Levi's. I'm a dude.
You'll be good as gold then, Mick.
Right.
As long as I can get some Craftsman tools.
There you go. Well, they got rid of that. So.
Yeah, man.
So. All right, Alex. Matt, thank you so very much.
Yeah.
And
thank you, guys.
It's been a pleasure and much continued success, and not only personally, but for what you and the people at GHS are trying to do for others.
Thank you so much.
We really do appreciate that.
Keep us posted because we'll share that information here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Likewise, we'll pimp. You know, we pimp you guys out too. So
we love it.
We appreciate
it. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right,
Alex. Thank you so very much. Have a great rest of the day. Tell everybody else we said hi, and much continued success.
Same to you guys. Thank you so much, guys.
And there you have the story.
She's a cool chick, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what? We have everybody. I don't care what anybody says. When they ask me who you interview, I'm like, you name it. We've had classical, we've had the crazy fusion jazz guys, all the way to reggae dudes, to just regular singer-songwriter. She's like an actress. She does all kinds of stuff, man. Her profile or her website, she's involved.
Yeah, for the most part, singer, songwriter, composer, and that's how she's done a lot of her stuff. And, fortunate enough to get into, TV and film soundtrack, which is, we've discussed this before. It's a whole nother side of the business that some people don't think about, and if you're lucky enough to get into it, it can be pretty cool.
Yeah. And look, I know we preach sometimes, and you know what? Good. Because this medium has to kind of thrive. We have to make sure that music is one of those things, man. It cannot, it can't go away.
I really don't want to see the day where computers are the only things generating music.
It can't be. We are not programmed or designed.
Possible. Yeah, it is possible. But God, I really would hate to see that day, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, it's not up to us. It's up to you guys as much as it is, we have to do our part too. And we're trying to do our part through this medium. And that's why we ask you, man, just spread the word, because it's not so much, hey, let's Mick and Jeff retire. That ain't going to happen from this show. But if we can make a difference, if we can make one kid pick up a guitar instead of a video controller, or sitting there typing on a keyboard, then that's a win for us.
Totally. And if you got to have your phone in front of you 24/7, well, you can plug a guitar into that thing too.
I do it all the time.
There you go. There you go.
Amplitude,
it's a new toy.
Amplitude is a great little app, and I have the full-blown software on the computer. And look, I can play any time of the day. You guys should check it out. It's very cheap, and the interface is like $20-$30, whatever the hell it is, from IK Multimedia. Look at this. I'm doing a commercial.
It's totally cool. No more commercials.
I just want my German friends over at IK Multimedia, if you want to buy into the show, we're more than happy to help you out. I love that product. I use the shit out of it. You kidding me? Me and Andy Martin Jelly, we should do. we should have an infomercial on that damn software.
That's right. For sure.
Yeah, I tell you what, man. God, and look, these are poor musicians. These are not, crazy, wealthy people, and they are putting tons of their time into charities. So please check them out, man.
Absolutely.
Because that part always not cracks me up. That part always blows my mind. I'm like, you're a starving musician, and you're spending your serious time going to help others. That is unbelievable,
And hugely commendable.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah,
for sure.
And it makes me feel a little bit less of myself. So, because I don't.
Well, you spend a lot of time on the show, and
God, I work
we
my
give it
ass
to
off.
people, and hopefully they appreciate it and turn others onto it, because it's a good thing, man. It's it's about music, and it's about people in music, and it's about their lives and histories, and that should be a happy and uplifting thing.
Well, it's definitely going to be the staple of what we leave with this medium. Me and you. You know what I mean? We have shared some story. Look, Paul Gilbert himself said something that I never heard in an article ever on this show. And that was, I really didn't want to be a shred guy. I just wanted to be a songwriter. I like the Beatles. And we were like, what? I mean, that is mind-blowing. You would think he would have been like, no, just metal all the time. I just
want to be the fastest in the world. No. And
he
just happened to be really good at that for a while.
And he's not Buckethead. So we got that out too, The truth was revealed.
That's true. I've met Buckethead, and it's not Paul Gilbert.
All right, so we'll leave you on that, man. So until next time, my friend.
Great. Well, we'll remove the bucket and do more commercials for people.
There you go. I'm Mick Marcelino.
That's right, you are, and I'm Jeff Bober.
And we're always saying,
onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @AmpsandAxes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage, ampsandaccesscast.com. Thanks for listening.